The Palestine Action terror ban has been ruled lawful by the UK Court of Appeal. It overturns a High Court ruling in February that the banning of the group under the Terrorism Act was unlawful and disproportionate. Quote, "We concluded that the proscription decision struck a fair balance," concluded Chief Justice Sue Carr, who said that final discretion on national security questions lies with the Home Secretary, currently Labour's Shabana Mahmood. Mahmood's fellow Labour MP, former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, does not agree. John, why not?
Because I didn't believe in the prescription at the time it came through Parliament. It was done in a way which I thought was unjust. And in addition to that, I felt that for the first time in our history, we are actually criminalising as terrorism direct action protest. And two issues there is the process that happened was that when Parliament debated this prescription, it wasn't a debate solely about Palestine Action. What the government did, which I think was just egregious, to be frank, is they put Palestine Action together with a whole range of other groups. You couldn't vote individually on those groups. You had to vote for the whole bloc. And they put Palestine Action together with a whole range of real terrorist organizations. And so MPs were loath to vote against that because they felt that actually these other organizations should be prescribed. So I think actually it was an appalling process for the government to undertake. Secondly, Palestine Action, whatever one thinks about their motives, what they're doing is a form of direct action that's been part of the history of this country and part of what we believe are our freedom, our civil liberties, and our constitutional rights. So I think the decision by the courts was wrong. I'm sure it will be appealed, but I'm appealing to the government now to think again. Drop the prescription, because what we're about to witness is thousands of people who've supported Palestine Action now being dragged through the courts, which I think is unfair and unjust, but also will make our court system grind to a halt. So for all those reasons, I regret the decision by the court today.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I remember one of those groups that Palestine Action was thrown in with for the Parliament to vote on was called Maniac's Murder Cult. You talked about this history of civil disobedience that Palestine Action fits into and direct action. That was something that struck me was the judge said that Palestine Action is not in keeping with this tradition of civil disobedience, including the suffragettes, because they're not peaceful. The suffragettes, of course, pursued various actions that were not peaceful. And this made me think about the difference between criminal and terrorist, because the judge would approve of the terrorist designation on the grounds of things like Palestine Action having covert aspects to its practices and also violent aspects, but it clarified the group's intention is not violence against people, it's violence against property. So I definitely found myself wondering, where's the line between criminal and terrorist? Do you think that this ruling has suitably established that?
Certainly not. What's happened here is I think the courts have strained the logic of this whole argument. Let me put it this way. When someone protests in the UK and they commit damage to a property, it's criminal damage. We know that. And actually, it's almost, that phrase where if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. When you undertake protests like that, you accept it could be seen as criminal damage. And therefore, yes, you accept the consequences of that. But nowhere in our history have we ever defined this form of protest as terrorism. Do we really mean to say that all those who've been campaigning, as you say, on suffragettes, but many other campaigns as well, which is involved in some damage to property, are we really saying that's always terrorism? That cannot be right. So that's why I think this needs to be immediately appealed. And I actually do think logic will eventually prevail, but today's decision, unfortunately, does set us back.
How do you think this ruling will affect your party, the Labour Party?
Well, it's interesting because the numbers who supported Palestine Action in the sense that they feel the prescription is unjust and unfair, in all the opinion polls, actually, they're coming out saying, actually, prescription of direct action in this way as terrorism is wrong. And it does have electoral consequences. And it also feeds into the argument that this government is becoming quite an authoritarian government. You know, the next proposal they've got coming up is to abolish jury trials for a whole series of actions in the court. So again, it feeds into that view that the government isn't representing the public overall and is going too far on a number of issues, and that's exactly what's happening here.
And of course, another part of that sequence of events, it was the controversial ruling on Friday, or the controversial sentencing on Friday of 4 Palestine Action activists known as the Filton Four. Now, they're aged between 21 and 30. They engaged in direct action against the arms firm, Elbit Systems, Israeli arms firm. Judge Johnson decided to sentence them as terrorists, despite the jury only convicting them of criminal damage with no mention of terrorism in the trial. What do you make of this? Does that fit into this sequence of events?
So it certainly does. I cannot remember another instance, well, I don't think there's been another instance where a trial takes place before a jury comes to a decision, and then subsequently the judge decides to sentence on different powers, on different grounds. I was astounded. I went along to Woolwich Court on Friday. I'd been visiting one of the prisoners, Fatima Rodiani, and again, what I found in her was a very idealistic young woman, very courageous to take the actions that she did. She served nearly 2 years, and on criminal damage, usually that's about the longest you would serve. So I was expecting on Friday that they would simply be released. But to then draw in this terrorist conviction, the grounds of terrorism, I think is absolutely shocking. And what it means, the consequences are a longer prison sentence, but actually you then get affected for most of the rest of your life as well, because there's certain conditions and licensing conditions that are placed upon you. And it does mean sometimes as well you're excluded from visiting other countries. So I think it was an appalling decision. I'm hoping it's going to be appealed, because it was so unjust to actually change the grounds upon you actually sentencing and putting people inside that were never before the jury. That cannot be right.
And finally, in light of these events, in light of the terror prescription of Palestine Action, the sentencing of the Filton Four, this talk about juries, do you, John, still identify with the Labour Party, your party, that is overseeing all of this?
I'm a member of the Labour Party, have been for 50 years. I've gone through different leaderships, taking policies that I've agreed with or disagreed with. And what I do as a Labour MP and as a Labour Party member is when there's a policy I disagree with, I make my views known and I seek to change. And I'm hoping that a number of other Labour MPs now will react against both the sentences and the decision today, and that we can have a change of policy. There's a likelihood there's a change of leader. I'm hoping if there is a change of leader, that new leader will look on this fresh, because I think it's bringing the Labour government into disrepute and certainly is costing us support.
John McDonnell, thank you so much for your time. Now, claimant and Palestine Action co-founder Huda Amori has said she will fight prescription all the way to the Supreme Court and the European Court of Human Rights. As it stands today, Palestine Action is prescribed as a terrorist organisation, and any expression of support for the group is, under UK law, a crime. Thank you for watching.